19年还是20年包括21年的有这样的 DeFi Summer，我觉得 OSL 当时我觉得走的比较领先的地方就是说争取去申请牌照，我觉得这个因为到最后我觉得他看清楚了一件事情是说，我们在提供一个金融的服务，那金融的服务一定是在合规的框架下会将来有更长远的去发展。
So 5 years ago, there weren't any regulatory frameworks in place. Very few jurisdictions had anything related to custody, related to issuance.
Back then, we were not betting on where the crypto sector was standing in the year 2019. We were betting on where the sector was going to be in the future. And so we weren't actually betting on short-term crypto speculations.
The transition has practically been from experimentation to fully regulated environment. And this has been what the industry needed for a transition from retail and speculative experimental activity to a fully regulated institutional activity on-chain.
If that were a Republican, it would really be a big scandal. But it is one of the great scandals of our time. Thank you very much, everybody.
This is going to be the first time the U.S. government has put a new federal regulatory framework in place.
Stablecoins are the point of contact between the first experimental case and the latter institutional case, where dollars can flow on-chain with the safety and soundness of the traditional banking system.
Crypto is a key component of that, and where it didn't exist 10 years ago, now it's a part of the portfolio, and it should be a part of a general wealth experience.
Back in 2022, it was one of crypto's largest ever failures.
Silicon Valley Bank was the 16th largest bank in the US. It took just a day and a half for it to fall apart. Over $150 billion. In 3 days, that's how much the world's 15 largest cryptocurrencies lost in market value.
I think after the crash in 21 and 22, there was a massive loss of trust in the ecosystem. So a lot of institutions at that time were thinking about ways to mitigate their counterparty risk. Security has really been top of mind.
It was an important event for us, although it was a very bad event. People understood that banking is necessary, and yet you have to have multiple backups in order to run your business.
It's really important because basically we do need to segregate these reserves for bankruptcy remote purposes so that we don't commingle with our own operating expenses and our own operating balance sheet. So it's really, I think that's a difference maker, so that if anything happens to the company, those reserves are protected.
So we started building the infrastructure in various different countries, and it's just been very, very slow and hard in terms of finding the right partners, getting the acceptance and the trust. I think overall, what has changed a lot in this time is the regulation. It came in very, very slowly, but still is quite fragmented in different countries. And we're navigating through that. There has been a lot of progress from the regulators, but I think they're still a little bit behind.
其實佢需要用 crypto 去做一啲嘅 cross border payment 咧，個需求係大嘅。因為先頭所講，你最要第一係成本，第二係時間。因為佢哋本身嚟講，可以由一笪地方去另一笪地方嘅時候咧，7乘24、365日，佢都可以做到一個支付模式，唔需要等銀行開門，因為可能中間嚟講會有個時間嘅差別。啱啱呢度做完之後，嗰邊銀行又未開，咁可能佢多3至4日，甚至可能一啲 corresponding bank 中間仲要一定嘅時間去審批。
Swift payment is pretty much like sending a physical letter. You put your Swift order in, you click send, the money leaves your account right away. The money does not hit their account right away, right? What does happen? The money goes to another bank, then to hopefully only one bank on the way, but you get the idea. It needs to do a couple of jumps, including if it's a USD element going through the US, in order to settle on the other side. which is why you wind up with T+3 as far as settlement goes. During that time, your money, you can't use it. The other side doesn't know they have it yet. It's effectively dead.
Digital asset 的这个 industry 跟传统金融和传统的 industry 是个巨大的一个割裂。那这里面有很多的这个原因背景的因素，但其实这个问题是放在那的。那我们站在一个从香港比较早期的就开始的一个合规的一个数字资产的平台。那我觉得最重要的作用是能够把这个通路可以修建起来，让传统的我们说传统的世界或者传统的金融可以 on ramp 到数字资产的这个世界里面来，包括我们拿的这些牌照包括我们后面的布局其实都是做好这个我们说修路人的一个这个角色，对吧？就是让两边的这个世界的通路可以畅通無阻。
Making this experience of on and offboarding as localized as possible. So again, you need local partners. You need to have local bank accounts. You have to have the local payment gateways. You have to have a team on the ground to really understand the whole economics, what great customer service looks like. So this is different for every market, and that's where we're trying to bring this on a local level to this global platform.
Coinbase, which earns half of the revenue generated by USDC, launched a new partnership with payment platform Stripe and e-commerce giant Shopify to bring USDC payments to merchants around the world.
JP Morgan announced its own stablecoin-like product called JPMD. Payments firm Fiserv announced a stablecoin to pair with the 90 billion transactions that it processes every year.
And even Walmart and Amazon are reportedly looking into their own tokens.
For the traditional companies, it's indeed difficult to move money into the crypto market. If you're a bank which is familiar with this market, you can easily move the money because we are working together very closely with our counterparties, all the correspondent banks. Our compliance understands how the things work behind the scenes.
There is a lot of attempts by localized e-wallet payment to actually go cross-border. And we've seen that doing with the Chinese e-wallet like Alipay, WeChat, and we also seen in the regional what Grab is trying to do. But they have faced a lot of roadblocks. And what we see that actually we want to use stablecoin and our solution to bridge localized e-wallets across different regions to be able to make payment on a cross-border basis.
To some of the largest banks in the world and trading firms in the world and institutions and VCs in the world, you have to have that security mindset first. And we've built our system with multiple layers of depth and defense in how we structure these things. So there's no single points of failure.
Safety over liveness is always our central philosophy as the leading non-custodial staking service provider. Although we do not take clients' funds in custody, but we prioritize the safety and security of clients' assets to not just chase a small basis point of rewards over increased risk.
因為對於商戶嚟講，佢好擔心，如果我哋揾到一個唔合規、唔合法嘅即係 partner 去做一個渠道，而佢哋會好擔心。所以我哋點解會希望鎖定咗我一啲有 license 嘅合作伙伴。
A huge congratulations to the OSL team on 5 years. When I look at why Ripple and OSL work so well together, it comes down to a shared vision. We both realized early on that the only way to win in this industry is by leaning into regulation, not by running away from it.
Over our years of collaboration, OSL has continuously improved its robustness of the platform by adopting various AWS security services, becoming an ideal platform for serving institutional investors. Using Nitro Enclave, isolating the process of highly confidential financial data, and the deep integration with the key management services to extend the security boundary from the network and identity authentication
然后呢，我们现在呢也和 OSL 这样的合规平台，然后联合向我们的用户推出抵押借贷、推出杠杆等等等等这样的服务。这样的话，就是让一个数字黄金的投资方式变得更加的符合现有的这个数字时代市场的交易需求。那么呢，我们是希望能够通过区块链的技术，然后让黄金这个传统的投资商品能够在新的数字时代，然后获得新的产品升级，然后为全球的用户提供更符合他们需要的新的产品。
In our partnership, Anchorage Digital Bank focuses on the technical lift and the compliance lift of issuing stablecoin in the most regulated federal environment. This is required for our issued stablecoins like USD Go to be accepted as an interbanking settlement instrument. At the same time, we can look at this partnership like a sports car. When you buy a performant vehicle on the street, you need the best manufacturer to provide the best platform and chassis, but it's the driver ultimately, OSL, that will drive it to success.
We see there's so many new use cases coming up that we haven't even really touched upon yet. And in the future, there's even going to be, crazy use cases for stablecoin to make the industry a little bit more fast, efficient.
And anyone with a mobile phone in their pocket can access the best financial products regardless of where they are, who they are. I'm quite optimistic that institutions looking at tokenized products, for example, will see a very clear regulatory framework happening very soon. And that's because we already have these frameworks that works in traditional finance. We just need to adapt them to the new economy and the new capital markets.
So in most payment systems today, approved doesn't mean settled. There is a time gap between a transactions can fail, be reversed, or need reconciliations. So on Avalanche, once a transaction happens, it's final in under a second. If you buy a coffee, it is not pending. It's actually done.
We would say that stablecoins payment only work at scales if users can instantly switch between different tokens and different chains. That's where Penny comes into play and makes it possible. Companies, so there's no pre-funding needed, no exchange exposure, no liquidity gaps. This flexibility is essential for stablecoins to become, let's say, a real financial infrastructure, not just a trading asset.
Identity will look more like a living credential that stays in sync with the person as well as the regulator's environment. This means that we will probably be able to make the identity a living stack. Credentials can be refreshed, strengthened, or even downgraded based on the external environment changes without forcing users to go into the long identity verification journey that we are seeing today.
There is the Web 2 components and there's the Web 3 component. The Web 2 component is really about a single API that we have built to allow customers to integrate to, which get them access to the on and off ramp providers, the market makers, and the folks that we now have integrated into the platform. The Web 3 component actually sits when it comes to all the on-chain transfers. Because ultimately, I think unlike the SWIFT of the world, which is just a messaging bus, when it comes to fiat on and off ramp and the call it stabilicoin ecosystem, there's also the on-chain component as well. That's really where Fireblocks also comes in, leveraging our previous experiences in helping over 2,500 customers, managing all the on-chain transactions, so that when they do manage their orchestration using a Web 2 solution, the Web 3 component also can allow them to deliver those assets as well.
New use cases are hinged upon the fact that traditional banking system and the financial system have to accept stablecoins as a cash equivalent, and that can only happen if the underlying foundation, so the issuance layer, is ultra regulated. And this is why Anchorage Digital Bank plays a big role. At the same time, the distribution is incredibly local and needs to have local rails, local knowledge, local business savviness, and that's what OSL brings to the table here.
So PayFi, the term actually means it's a combination of payments and finance, right? What we believe that this will allow is the fact that there's a merging of your payment services that you have access to, and also your investment services that you have access to. So in the Western world, for example, your payment services such as Venmo and Cash App are separated from your traditional brokerages, such as Fidelity accounts, right, or Charles Schwab accounts. What PayFi allows you to do is to bring both of these services together in one single user experience. And I think one of the things that we believe that is going to actually can only be built on blockchain is the fact that you can build payments and investment services together because of the composability of blockchains.
The hype era is over, and the utility era has won. And the data proves it. 86% of institutional investors have now got exposure to digital assets or plan to adopt it. That is a massive signal that we have moved from pilots into production. Whether it's on-chain finance or stablecoin settlements, institutions are finally using this tech to solve arduous, expensive business problems in addition to trading tokens. The old system traps trillions of dollars in just-in-case pre-funding. Ripple unlocks that value with just-in-time settlement.
Let's go back 5 years ago. I said, we're a long ways away, and this is not going to happen. But look what's happened in these past 5 years. In fact, even the last year, where just changing politicians can make a huge difference globally in what happens and what's accepted, and the comfort levels. It's just a matter of time of getting the regulators being comfortable, the technology improving, speed of knowledge, and also the younger generation who live on crypto are going to actually come into management positions and have more influence in policies. And I think we'll get there.
Stablecoin is the ultimate product market fit of blockchains. I think by 2030, people will just think of it as money. And we don't really sit here and talk about how money and different forms of money move around. And that's really where stablecoin is going. It's going to be really sit on the backbone of every businesses and for businesses to send money across the world. Everybody, you, me, a mother, a grandmother, can all use stablecoins very easily without knowing what it is.
That conversation, the moment we have to talk about an on-ramp or an off-ramp, we are implicitly saying there's friction in the system. The real direction of travel is no ramp. When all of a sudden I can give you fiat, it translates into stable, it doesn't matter. We just know that the currency is flowing to the right place and it will land in the format that it needs to be accepted in.
那我们 OSL 站在这个合规的平台的，包括我们战略发展上，就是把整体的这个虚拟世界和传统现实世界的这个通路去把它抹平，把这个高速公路给修建起来，形成两边都可以 on ramp 和 off ramp 的那个高速公路。那相信几年之后，大家就不会再有这个意识，会意识到还需要 on ramp 和 off ramp， 可能就可以无缝连接了。
On-ramp the next billion.
On-ramp the next billion.
On-ramp the next billion.
Through great in-wallet user experiences.
Through stablecoin, bringing trillions of dollars on-chain.
Through seamless interaction and interoperability between fiat and digital assets.
Through closing the gap between traditional finance and blockchain technology.
Through efficiency, innovation, and client protection.
Unlock the next billion? No, we are unlocking the next trillion.